Yo, what's up, boot campers? It's real early in the morning here, so everyone's asleep, and I can't yell. But if I could, I would be jumping up and down and saying congratulations and thank you to each and every one of you. Your progress that you made this week has been amazing to witness, and I'm so proud of how far you've all come. So I made this little video to highlight some of the awesomeness that's happened here. Lots of love. Yes, it's time for the last day. It's feeling a little sentimental today. So I got up early to make that video for you all. I've been really touched by seeing how hard you've been working and how seriously you've taken our boot camp here together. I was also really impressed with Rymetry's tutorial that he made for the 128s. So I want to show you what he did with his assignment and why he won.
Hello, this is Rymetry. Welcome to my low quality video tour of how I do my drums. Normally I have things racked out into the meat, potato, spice method that Dylan teaches about, but for the sake of this challenge I'm just doing it here on a 16 pad drum rack. So I've got all of the selectors for my 128s macroed out, so I can obviously just change the knob and get a different sound. I can hit random and get a brand new kit entirely, which we'll look at in a bit. Some other things that I'm doing here, if we look at my claps, for example, this is actually two different 128s, and I've got the chain selector crossfading between them, so I can blend between two different sounds, which gives me a lot of more sonic possibility. And I've got that set up for most of the sounds, pretty much anything where I would want to be blending in between them just to get a little bit more variation. Something else I'm doing is, if we look on my kicks, I've got things like the velocity easily accessible here, so I can make the velocity less or more random. The range of the randomness will get larger as I increase the knob, or I can turn it off entirely and I can override it and specifically set the velocity, and I can automate that obviously if I want as well. Similarly, I have an arpeggiator macroed, so this beat that I'm going to show you here, you know, if we just play it real quick. If I turn the ARP gate up, Just re-enable the automation here. You'll see now it'll do a kick roll. So you can see on the knob. So that's pretty useful for kicks especially. I've got things going to some return tracks, nothing special, just a side chain for everything other than the kicks and the snares. And then I've just got some drum verb. Yeah, I mean, that's the most of it. Obviously, I have additional controls for each individual 128, so I can easily change the pitch. I can, do FM, change the ADSR for each of the sounds, stuff like that. I just like to have everything really easily accessible and easily tweakable. So just to wrap up, I'm going to play the beat and just hit random a couple times and see what we get. All right, rock on.
So yeah, you can kind of see why they call it the infinite drum rack now, huh? Yeah, I was kind of, holding back on some of the more advanced 128 techniques because I didn't want to overwhelm everyone yesterday. But once you get the hang of making 128s, there are like fundamental implications for that. But really just getting a handle on making 128s is the first step. And as you work with them, you will find that it opens up all these new possibilities. But I was trying to kind of like make more minimal versions of each of the classes so that those of you who are new wouldn't be overwhelmed in the 5 days. Most of these classes are from my course, The Producer's Path. With the exception of today's class, which is kind of like a mashup of the Producer's Path and a few other things. But the Producer's Path is basically, instead of doing everything in 5 days, it's a 90-day program, and there's a week for each of the classes. So the only class that I gave you like the close to the full class for was on day 2 when we talked about mixing, because if I skipped any of that stuff, it would have not been nearly as good of a class. Like I feel like it would have been kind of, it would have been compromised if I didn't go through exactly why clippers are the way that they are, and why they're the tool for the job that you need, and exactly why the volume enveloping and crossfader sidechain methods are superior to side chains. It's really hard to explain any of that technical stuff in a short way. But I just want to make sure that you all know that we're currently in the process of filming the Producer's Path live with a live group. There's a lot of people in the group, and several of them have come over here to Beatmaker Bootcamp because we took a week off to do Beatmaker Bootcamp so we could do like a speed run of the first few weeks. So those of you who've done Beatmaker Bootcamp, after today, you'll be basically caught up. And if you want to join our group live doing the Producer's Path, if you can get in there before Wednesday, then you'll be caught up, and you can come hang out in the Discord with all of us and keep the producer party going. So that's at theproducerspath.com. So, I mean, you can see people in the chat, like, it's lifetime access to the course, free updates for life, and it's, when you get the full depth of each of those lessons, you can still watch them like years from now and be getting more and more out of them, because the way I like to teach is I like to present the concepts at several depths of complexity at once, so that You know that there is more, but that the simple way is still enough, right? Because that's that feeling that, there's an infinite depth to every aspect is something that never goes away in music, and you have to learn to navigate and work with a simplified version of everything and get everything up and running. And then once you have everything up and running, then go into each area and get more depth. So that's why the classes are like that. And a lot of people will do the producer's path. Like a lot of the emphasis is on habit formation. And so doing the producer's path in the 12 weeks that it's designed is really good for habit formation and making a transformation in your life because, as I'm sure you've witnessed this week, just showing up and doing even the baby steps version of things each day is so much better than not doing it. And, when you get the momentum going and you start habit tracking and you get a streak, the tendency is to keep going. So, it's recommended that the first time you do the course, you do it in the 12 weeks, but then there is enough in the links in the notes and enough additional kind of, concepts and stuff. There's enough additional depth that as you return to those exercises, you'll get more and more out of them each time, because these are all exercises that I still do all the time, even after like 20 plus years of making music. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, man, I'm like 42 years old now, and I've been, full time about music since I was like 20, and because I got my first record deal when I was like 19. I didn't even know what I was doing. And I did the math, and like, because like I will spend 12 hours a day in a studio or more often. And there are times when like there was a period during the pandemic when I was doing like 14-hour days every day for months before I realized that I was like, I should take a day off. So I did the math of like, if you conservative estimate 6 hours a day, which is a fairly conservative estimate. Those of you who know me will know that I often spend far more than 6 hours a day, frequently 2 or 3 times that. But there are days when I don't make music. But yeah, if you do the conservative estimate of that, 6 hours a day times like 23 years is 50,000 hours in the studio. 50,000. That's a conservative estimate. So yeah, that's why these methods work so well. They've been tested. But yeah, so I would highly recommend getting in on the producer's path, because this live version, like once it's done, it'll be, a digital course, and the live one is a real vibe. So you may have noticed the last 3 days, the prizes were the summits, the Illgate summits. So while working in a group and taking lessons and everything is fantastic, there's really no substitute for one-on-one training. And so I'm doing 3 like full day trainings with a group of like 5 people. One person of each group is going to be the winner. So there's 4 spots left at each of these summits. And, there's a lot of stuff that I do actually hold back on unless it's an in-person session, because there's just so much back and forth, like questionings to explain it. But a lot of the best stuff can only be explained in person and can only be explained in a way that is tailored to the individual that I'm teaching. So these summits are going to be really next level. The spots for each are $9.99. And they are going to come with tons of downloads and a full day of like one-on-one, which is going to be pretty epic. So there's going to be 5 people in the group, but I'll be rotating through. So each person gets all the one-on-one attention that they need. And then they'll have stuff to do while I'm rotating through the others. And then there's, but yeah, so we're going to hang out like all day and train, and beans will be spilled. So yeah, if you want to apply for that, you may notice that it says for serious producers only on all the graphics, because It really is. They are for serious producers only. So if you want to apply for that, you can hit the link. I can answer some questions and stuff afterwards. And then the other thing that I want to tell you about is I got an unannounced black box gig in Denver on the 30th of August. So, as I often do in Denver, I'm going to be coming in a week early and doing a studio week. And these studio weeks can accommodate up to 3 people who can sit in and watch me work and or potentially like make a beat together, hang out, swap files. I'll be bringing my hard drives and stuff. And I mean, how sick is it going to be to hang out in Denver for a week in a fancy recording studio? And then you can be my guest at the Black Box. So yeah, that's going to be pretty cool too. And then if you get that package, that's $29.99, and that will include a ticket to all 3 summits. So yeah, if you want to do that though, this is again like application only. So hit up support@producerdojo.com if that is something that tickles your fancy. But yeah, so there is some one-on-one training options for those of you who want to get that QT in there and you know, maybe smoke a joint and ask questions at the end when we're done, you know? So, yeah, so there is some one-on-one time available. There's the summits. There's 3 of the summits. Each of those are going to be a full day, and then we'll schedule what day it is. And then there's a deal for all 3. That's at that summit page, producerdojo.com/IG-summit. Oh, hi, Feather. Oh, you opened the door like a velociraptor. All right, here, up you go. Up you go. Here, good girl. Up you go. Dude, they've learned to open doors. That's awesome. But yeah, so the summits are going to be really sick. And then there's that studio week before Black Box in Denver. Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, I'm really, really pumped about that. And that you just email support@producerdojo.com. All right, cool. So now I just want to highlight too, because, you know, I mean, 50,000 hours is a lot. But I just want to highlight that, you know, as accomplished as I am, many of my students are way more accomplished than me. Many of them have gone on to be world famous household names that you probably know. Did you know that you could be proud of the music you're making 90 days from now, even if you've never made music before? All it takes is a commitment to 5 minutes a day. Yep, just 5 minutes, and you'll embark on a transformative journey into music production and self-discovery. Can you spare that? I'm Bill Gates, and I've spent 20 years distilling my experiences with Grammy-winning artists, making tracks played over 65 million times into something epic for you, the producer's path. This isn't just a course, it's a gateway to mastering music production without needing expensive gear or prior experience. You don't need to be born rich, you don't need to be born gifted. All you need is a commitment to spending 5 minutes a day on music. The producer's path is a proven system that has supported top artists throughout the industry. And now it's your turn to access these secrets and forge your own unique sound. As you journey through the 12 levels of the producer's path, each step designed to build your skills and confidence, you'll not only learn music production, but also discover how to express your individual style, breaking the rules like a true artist. Join our vibrant Producer Dojo community, get feedback on your tracks, and maybe even feature on a Dojo mixtape. With no subscriptions and free updates for life, your path to music mastery is evergreen, and you can come back again and again and again, getting more out of it each time. So what's it going to be? Continue as is, or spend the next 90 days at the dojo transforming into the music producer you've always wanted to be? Listen to what your fellow dojo members have achieved with the producer's path. Their success stories could be yours.
I started from zero.
Dude, the way you laid it out,
Here's what you do first.
It's amazing.
The habit tracking changed my whole mindset.
honestly,
Huge breakthrough.
Huge difference.
comprehensive.
Game changers.
It gives me goosebumps.
Just blows my mind.
That's when I was like, okay, I can make music.
I'm actually doing some art.
Making music felt more real at that point.
To understand, hey, I'm doing this shit right.
I can show my children's children who I was.
Other people have been saying it sounds good.
Everybody's, oh, that's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting.
Never found the answer until I went to the producer's path.
Yeah, so, now that you've had a taste, you understand that that is all real. But like, honestly, it is so that our biggest problem with marketing at Producer Dojo is just like, nobody believes us. Like, people are like, that can't be true. Like that can't be true. But it all is. It all is. And I mean, that's just what happens when you're bubbling in the cut for 20 years behind the scenes, helping people, take it to the next level. But yeah, so you basically did a speed run of the first little bit of the producer's path, and we are continuing it live, and I would love to continue it live with you. But today we're going to do the fifth class. And the fifth class is a mashup of the producer's path and Remix Your Life. Here we go. Yes, there we go. Today is remixing stems. So this is basically all about phase 3. And phase 3 is the missing phase in most people's workflow. That is the reason why you get stuck, and the reason why you don't finish songs, and the reason why your computer isn't fast enough, and the reason why you get frustrated and everything breaks, and it's just a bummer until you know about phase 3. So today is a class that's all about phase 3. I'm going to show you a bunch of cool tricks that you can do. And first, we are going to talk about bottlenecks, the things that slow you down and make you get stuck. Then we're going to talk about the magic of versions and versioning. Then we're going to talk about remakes. Often, you can't polish a turd. So what do you do when you can't polish a turd? Then we're going to talk about articulations, and then transitions, and then finally, your challenges. All right, so bottlenecks, you got to ask, what is the holdup? What is slowing you down? What is making workflow stop, right? Well, bottlenecks limit the rate of output, as I've tried to illustrate with my little graph on the side there, my little illustration on the side. Timer beats, etc. This is another technique that I train people with, where you organize your workflow into stages with time limits using the same kind of timers that athletes use to train, like high intensity interval training. So it's high intensity interval training for music producers. And this is like, if you want to find out where the bottlenecks are, timer beats are the method. It can be a little demoralizing because the point of it is to make a lot of mistakes as quickly as possible. But if you have the stomach for it, you will realize that you have bottlenecks. Everybody has bottlenecks. And the sooner you can just, swallow your pride and do some timer beats, you will find them real quick. Full session recordings do that too. A lot of the time I will stream not even necessarily because I'm trying to show people what I'm doing, but I'll stream because I want to be able to look back at the recording and see how long I spent on what tasks, or where my bottlenecks are. Going through recordings of yourself producing is really remarkable, especially when you go to the different time indexes. A lot of people will also use what's known as an always on recorder. An always on recorder is just that, a recorder that is running the whole session, just capturing absolutely everything you do. It's really good for getting happy accidents, or often when you are pursuing sound design in a really directed way, your ears are closed to things that you may accidentally make along the way that are actually super awesome. And if you have a nice 6-hour long wave file or whatever of your whole session, you can often go back through that and find really cool bits to cut out. And a lot of producers, especially bands and stuff, big studios, will have an always on recorder. A lot of bands swear by the always on recorder technique. I'm really into it. I use a device called Bird's Rolling Sampler that a few people in the dojo are also pretty keen on. And that device is, you can basically just put it on your master and it records a 2-minute long buffer of what just happened. And if you do happen to notice a happy accident in the moment, you can quickly grab it out of the buffer and drag it into your Ableton, and it makes a new, or drag it into your DAW, could be Ableton, could be FL, and it will make a new audio file for you. And I do that a lot. It's really, really awesome and handy and cool. Okay, so full session recordings will reveal your bottlenecks, and they also have the added bonus that you can grab little bits and bobs, grab all your happy accidents that you might have missed otherwise. So I ask you, what is your bottleneck? Have you noticed any bottlenecks? Post them in the chat. And maybe we can talk about them. But could be CPU. A lot of people overload their computer the whole time. Maybe you have a limited amount of RAM and you're constantly filling your RAM. That's a big deal. Final takes. I know a lot of people where they, especially vocalists, will kill it on the scratch take, but then when it's time to do the final recording, they can choke from the pressure. It's just kind of natural when you hit the record button to be like, oh, the final, I don't know. And you start freaking out. Maybe it's just starting. Or maybe you just don't, you procrastinate on testing it on other sound systems. Even starting. I find when it comes to starting, the habit tracking thing that we do in the dojo makes a big difference. We use this app called Habit Hive, the system inspired by the book Atomic Habit by James Clear. And there's a growing body of research that when you want to establish a habit, the smallest possible goal is actually the most effective. And an example is frequently given of a person who wanted to increase their reliability working out. And if you set the goal of doing a single push-up every day so that you can tick a box in your habit tracker, the natural tendency is to do more than one push-up. But if you start with the smallest possible unit of habit, the smallest possible unit, 5 minutes a day in the studio. We've done habit tracking challenges in the dojo for a long time. And the people who get the biggest results are often the ones with the smallest goals. So, a single push-up. Just remember, there are people who got fit with a single push-up as their daily goal, right? If you want to do habit tracking for free, to habithive.app. That's our partner that we work with in the dojo. He's this awesome dude I met on Reddit. He's from England. His name is Sam. And he made the Habit Hive tracking app inspired by Atomic Habit so that his girlfriend wouldn't have to remind him to do the chores. How adorable is that as an app origin story? So he's not even really trying to make it like a commercial app or anything. But yeah, very, very cool. And then if you want to get on the Producer Dojo scoreboard, if you use the code Producer Dojo after you sign up for the subscription, which is like $20 a year or something, it's really, really affordable. Then you can get on the Producer Dojo habit tracking scoreboard, which is fun. It's fun. And sometimes we do prizes and stuff. But yeah, so starting, if you have trouble starting, remember James Clear's Atomic Habit, 5 minutes a day. Set that as the daily minimum. So then that way there's no excuse. You're in there every day and you will naturally grow from 5 minutes to more. But if your goal is 5 minutes to tick a box in a habit tracker, that is the key for starting. But, maybe decision making, digging for samples, finding the face. I know a lot of people who can do the iteration of form thing and just make genre X in 2 seconds, but they have trouble finding leads. There's ways to do all of these things. Or maybe just stop yourself a lot. That's a lot of people's are just in the habit of just like, they'll work for a while and then they'll be like, this sucks, I suck, blah, blah. There's like a bunch of negative self-talk will start up. But there are ways around all this stuff. It's normal. It's all normal, none of you that are posting habits or posting things that you stop. None of those are things we haven't seen before. So yeah, a lot of it is covered in the course. But the most common one, not doing phase 3. That's the most common one. The most common one is not doing phase 3. So let's talk a little bit about destructive editing. Destructive editing is a scary word. I don't want to destroy all what I've created, right? That's a lot of hard work. You don't want to destroy that. Well, it's not actually destructive editing, as we will cover, and you shouldn't be scared of destructive editing. Destructive editing is an awesome, awesome tool. And phase 3 is all about destructive editing, where you make high quality stems. I often recommend rendering at double the sample rate that your target output is. So if you're, going to distribute music, the target output is 44.1. So I run everything at 88.2, because then when you sample it and pitch it down, there's extra highs. And then, a lot of things come out better. Reverbs come out better. Synthesis comes out better. Clipping comes out better. Summing comes out better. So there are reasons, but you can do your own tests. 44.1 is fine though. Mr. Bill works at 44.1 and his shit all sounds pretty good. But yeah, so phase 3 is where you render high quality, clean stems with no sounds overlapping, because you want to be able to manipulate them later. And I usually don't render with the side chains baked in case I want to manipulate a sound. I don't render with the side chains baked in. But yeah, so you render high quality stems and then edit/remix the stems to finish. And this is why making a remix is easy, but making an original song is hard, is because in a remix, you're starting in phase 3. Right? But most people don't think about it like this. They just get frustrated and go, why is it easy to do a remix, but hard to do an original track? This is why, right? So people will fear when they hear the word destructive editing. They go, oh no, what if I lose control? What if I pass a point of no return? Oh no. But destructive editing is not a bad thing. All you got to do is make a save point, before you fight a boss at the end of a level in a video game. You make a save point, right? There's a save point from the fabulous old school video game Metroid 2, actually, from 1991. You can just make a new save with notes in the file name. I'll often just put a new number at the end of, I'll go to save as, put a new number at the end and say like last before stems. And then I'll save as again and I'll put a new number and I'll say stems. And then if I ever want to get anything from before I turned it into audio, I can just go there, right? I also am a big fan of the saved stuff folder inside the project folder. And you may remember in the Flipping Sparks demo, I was using that saved stuff folder. Well, I was showing you that as well as some of the resampling techniques because the saved stuff folder. Oh man, I wish I started doing this ages ago. See, all you got to do is just inside the current project, make a folder called Save Stuff. You can drag presets, you can drag samples, you can drag channels, you can drag groups, you can drag frozen tracks before you flatten them. So it was Missing Links, Dojo member Missing Links, who turned me on to that, and that has become an utterly crucial part of my workflow. So big up to Missing Links for that. Very, very hot Ableton tip. Okay. But you could do that in everything. Like I'll do it on any DAW, you know, you just put a saved stuff folder in your project folder. So life-changing, like just crazy. It's the simplest thing and it makes the hugest difference. Okay. So now I want to tell you another recipe that I really, really love. This is a new recipe and I call this the 3 mixes recipe, or the 3 versions recipe. So this is really fun because it is this is a really good way to do collabs. And I do this every time I make a track now, especially when it's a collab. So first, you work in an unstructured way until you get stuck. I'm sure you've all tried that. Then you render stems in high quality. I suggest 32-bit floating point at 88.2 sample rate. Then you make a new stems save inside your project with the word stems in the end, like I was saying. And then you make 3 remixes of those stems as fast as you possibly can, with the goal of making them all as different from each other as possible. Then you test them on other people who are not your friends, because your friends, their job is to encourage you, not to give you ruthlessly honest feedback like you'd get on a dance floor or on Reddit, okay? Your friend's job is to encourage you. They're your friends. Don't ask your friends for honest feedback on your music or art or anything. Ask them for encouragement. Ask them for support. That's what they're there for. That's what they want to give you, not brutally honest, soul-crushing feedback. You ask someone else who's a musician and knows their stuff, or someone else who's a fan and is hella geeked out on music, and then be sure to specify a criticism harshness level on a scale of 10, because most people will not want to give you real feedback to your face, okay? So if you think you've got real feedback from people casually, you are wrong. You need to actually play it for a dance floor of strangers. Play it for, maybe get a stranger on the street to check it out on your headphones. That is a great way to get honest feedback. If you just compliment a stranger on the street on their fashion sense and be like, I bet you have good taste in music. Do you want to check out my music? I would love to get your feedback because my friends just encourage me and I can't tell if they're blowing smoke up my ass. And then specify the scale, and you know what? You might make a fan. And if the stranger genuinely likes your music, you can get their phone number for your mailing list. All right? So test it on other people who are not your friends. They'll hear like fans and not producers. Producer feedback is important, but producers are like,
I like the way you use the triplets for the fill at the end of that second drop section. The way that goes into the switch is just fantastic.
Whereas a fan will be like, this music makes me feel stupid, which is often better feedback, right? Usually the winner of the remix, like artists famously have very poor perspective on their own work, myself included. I'm always surprised whenever I put out an album. I'm always surprised by the one that is the fan favorite. So be aware. Artists you don't have perspective on it. You're hearing the plugin you used or where the sample came from or whatever, right? You're not hearing like what it sounds like to a naive outsider. Classic example of this is like last year I put out this EP called Muse, and I got to work with one of my all-time favorite rappers ever, Pavan from Foreign Beggars. Foreign Beggars are like the most legendary UK rap group in the electronic scene. They've done work with like Skrillex and Feed Me and Flux Pavilion and, Noisia. They had a band with Noisia called I Am Legion. Like these guys are like gods to me. I played some shows with them. Me and Pav and Ebo, rest in peace, we hit it off and became friends. And eventually I got to work with him and made this track called Wave with DJ Yon from the Dojo and Pavan and Who Knew from Deep Medi Crew. I don't know if you know Deep Medi Crew, but they're about the most OG dubstep crew ever in the UK. And we put out this track called Wave, which was the track 1 on the Muse EP. And I was like, this is one of the best tracks I have ever written. And then the track of the year for last year was a song called Bad Bitches that I made in 30 minutes, kind of by accident, when I was trying to teach someone that all you need to make a good tune is a riff, a turnaround, and a fat drop. And I made it in 30 minutes, just like no mastering, nothing, just nothing. And like didn't take the promo campaign seriously at all, put pictures of like stupid dogs on the cover, and that killed what I thought was my masterpiece last year, the tune that I think is like objectively better. And that's just how it is. That's just how it is. All right. Like I wasn't even going to put out Bad Bitches. I thought it was stupid. And then I played it like I like needed a track that was in that key to do a transition in a DJ set, and people lost their goddamn minds. And I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, I guess people like the Bad Bitches song. And then, I tried it in another set. It was like the same reaction. And then there were people who were like, Dylan, this is my favorite song that you've ever made. This just makes me want to throw ass. I can't. And I was like, okay, I guess I should put it out. And it like killed everything else I did last year. So that's how it goes. That's how it goes, right? You got to test. You got to test on strangers. And often when you do this 3 mixes recipe, the stuck version that you were like so obsessed with finishing, that you were like, this is the one, blah, 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 that you were pushing so hard in phase 2 to finish. Usually that version, by the time you do the 3 versions, that the goal is to work fast. The goal is to make them as different as possible. The goal is to just like remix yourself to finish. By the time you finish those versions, they're usually so much more like liberated sounding and fun and like just like vibey. And it's like you're starting with all the sound design done, you're starting with all the riffs done, you're starting with the face done, and you just resequence it from scratch using the stems, and it comes off as so much more of a vibe, and you don't have to like stop to EQ anything and fix stuff. Like it all just already goes, so you just focus on the sequencing. And when you have 3 versions, you're not like, oh, but I need to include that channel, I spent so long working on that sound. You don't care. Just put it in the other version, right? So it allows you to be essentialist. And essentialism is when you like remove until you find the point where if you remove any further than that, the track is no longer that track, right? And you need to like not be shy about making these drastic creative decisions late in the game. Right? The tendency is to like, once you make a decision, you're like, okay, that's that one decided, that's forever, but it's not forever. It's a digital system. Like you can remix anything forever, infinitely. You can always like, you can take one sample and make like a whole new song just out of like 1 second of one sample. You can make a whole song out of a squeaky door hinge, right? So it's never the end point. But yeah, so you just render stems of the whole thing and then just remix it. Bliss Ray asked, you bounce the sub too? Yeah, but it's easy enough to just make the sub again. Like it's a sine wave. It's not even really a patch, you know, a lot of the time. You know, and you can always add back MIDI parts if you decide you want something different about the sub. As long as you print it without like side chains baked into the stem, then yeah, sample your sub. Okay, cool. So yeah, this recipe, life-changing. The three versions recipe or the 3 mixes recipe, life-changing. Like, start doing it, please. Okay. But what happens when you've ruined something? This often happens when you're working on a song. You lose perspective, your ears go numb, decision fatigue sets in, you apply whatever the latest plugin you bought is, because, you know, when you with a hammer in your hand, every problem becomes a nail. So often you end up going too far, you know? It's like someone who first discovers the Instagram filters and suddenly they're just this like white sheath of skin with eyes, you know? And then you're like, oh yeah, maybe 100% is a lot on that filter, you know, but you got to overuse it because only one who has gone too far knows where the limit lies. Only one who has gone too far knows where the limit lies. So what do you do when you've ruined a part? Well, it's real easy to remake them. You know, you can't polish a turd. Yeah, it's usually true. Ruining sounds is normal. Ruining sounds should be expected. If you're not ruining some of your sounds, you're not doing anything that interesting, probably. You're making very conservative sound design decisions, I would guess. Very conservative mixing decisions. If you don't break anything ever, you're probably not pushing the limits. And pushing the limits is what makes things interesting, right? So fidelity is easily lost during processing, especially with EQ. I have this YouTube video called EQ is Ruining Your Shit. You should check it out. Really quick, easy demo that you can do, and you'll be like, my God, what is EQ doing to my transients and stereo image? Ah! So EQ is ruining your shit. Over-applying EQ is the #1 cause of ruined channels. But there's lots of ways to ruin a channel. You know, I like to keep a render of every save. Like I version my saves all the time. Anytime I do something major, it'll be track name -3, track name -4. And I keep a render. I used to delete the WAV files of all of them because I was like, it's a lot of WAV files. It's taking up hard drive space. But I have learned that ear fatigue is real. And, you know, often more mixing is worse. And going back to the original high fidelity, like first session, when you first wrote it, a lot of the time, the first quick demo that you made, you know, that after that first like hour of arranging, that will often be much better than the same track that's been worked on for like 20 more sessions full of mixing. Okay. So, I have learned that going backwards and remaking things is the key, you know? And if you want to learn to like listen for fidelity loss, listen for that like mushy feeling and the copy of a copy feeling, okay? I will nearly always remake the main focus sounds from scratch at the end as part of my mixing process. I'll do whatever it takes to make the sounds, and I won't think much about ruining them until my composition is finished. And then at the very end, I will often remake my vocal. I'll go back to the original recordings, line them up and just go, okay, well, I know what my target is with this vocal. How can I get there in the least number of steps using only the most high fidelity processing, using the least amount of processing? Like, what is the most elegant way from point A to point B? So you take the fast way first, which is usually messy, and then you take the elegant way at the end and get the cleanest, simplest process required to achieve that same result. That will make a world of difference for your quality, Okay, that'll make a world of difference. I often remake all of my subs from scratch at the very end. I often remake all of my transients, especially because a vertical wave edge, right? Like every sound wave in like a digital environment can be made out of the sum of sine waves. And if you take sine waves of all these different frequencies to make like an actual square wave, you have to have like the very high frequencies perfectly lined up. Like we're talking about so many harmonics, like 1,000 harmonics to make a perfect square wave. And they all have to be lined up perfectly. And the tiniest bit of EQ, the tiniest bit of reverb, the tiniest bit of phaser or flanger, and all of those frequencies are no longer lining up and the edge is no longer square. So the vertical rising edge of a square wave, of a saw wave, of a transient, that is the sound of dryness, right? Think about it that way. That is the sound of dryness. It is a very unnatural thing because as we've learned, high frequencies die very quickly, low frequencies don't. So distance is a low pass filter. And when you have a low pass filter, you no longer have a rising square edge. It's rounded off, right? It's rounded off. And that's actually, if you've ever used a glide inside of a synth, like portamento or glide, when you go with two notes that are overlapping, at a circuit level, glide is accomplished by a low pass filter. Basically, it's just a low pass filter on the control voltage that the keyboard is sending that determines the pitch. Because a low pass filter carves off the square edge and makes it smooth, right? So if you low pass a control voltage, you get a glide, right? So those rising square edges, they're the first things to go. That's why, more EQ always makes things sound farther away. Even boosts make things sound muffled sometimes. It's really weird, but it's because square rising edges are the sounds of dryness. So you will often need to remake a vocal from scratch, remake a drum transient from scratch, and subs get wrecked pretty easy too. So you often will remake those from scratch at the end. The sound design process goes way faster with a clear target. The mixing process goes way faster with a clear target. This remake move does not take long, because you know what you're going for. It might have taken you forever to compose the original part, but because you know what you're going for, it's not going to take you long to remake it, and it'll sound a billion times better than trying to polish a turd. All right, so let's talk about articulations. So I make what I like to call remix tracks. You saw me do it in the demo on flipping sparks. Well, this is some more detail on that technique. So a remix track is where you have the same sound, but new edits on a new channel. This can be audio or MIDI tracks. It is quite frequently both. You can see in the example screenshot, I'm using both techniques there. I've got a MIDI part at the top. I've made some reverbs and resample glitches for it out of audio. And then I've resampled it and made some additional MIDI parts as well that are all based off of that same channel. It's MIDI, it's turning into audio, and then that audio is turning back into MIDI, right? And the listener doesn't know any of this. It just sounds like one channel with a bunch of articulation, right? Usually I will group these channels together with the original track because you may want to put like a low pass on all of them, or you may want to put like a, OTT on all of them or something, right? So it's nice to have them all as a unit. Some remix track use cases include reverse reverbs into a lead sound. That's like the classic way to introduce a big lead, and it almost like makes a riser that is like leads perfectly into the lead. Or like if anyone's ever talking to a ghost in a movie, how they symbolize that they're talking to a ghost at a sound design level is almost always the reverse reverb trick. Extending a note with a sampler looping. This is really great, especially if you have a vocal where it's going like, oh my God, and then you go, oh my God, like if you want to do that, loop a tiny piece of that sample in a sampler, and you can make a lot of really, really cool effects. And a lot of the best drops will have that, where it's like, you know, some big vocal, then you just loop the tiniest piece of that vocal, and it basically turns it into an oscillator, and then you can do stuff to it. It's super cool. I use the trick all the time. Adding rewinds like right before a transition, or making fake scratches with sampler. I do that all day. The slice to MIDI and then create variations using the slices is really great. It's much easier to rearrange the slices of a sample and try a whole bunch of different combinations if it's in a MIDI form than if it's in an audio form, and you got to like select a thing and move it over and then select the rest of the things and put them in the other spot. Like, how much faster is it to just go like, it's like so easy. Even if you're not using your hands, it's like so much easier to do it with MIDI. All right. And then, of course, editing in MudPie moments as articulation. So yeah, let's check out some of these techniques. I made you some little demo videos. Gonna play? Come on, play. Why you no play? Oh, there we go. Very creative riff. Yeah, spent a long time coming up with that one. Okay, so I've got the sound resampled. Now I'm going to give it the backwards treatment. So slice out the first hit. Flip it backwards using the R command. Put a hybrid reverb on it. Nice long one. Now I'm going to sample that again. So it's backwards with a long reverb. And now we give it the double backwards. See, so now I've got that long reverb off the backwards sound. Just give it the double backwards. That's quite the backwards. Got to have the backwards as. Look at that. Yeah, you've heard that. You've heard that. Okay, so now I want to extend this note. So I've chopped out a note there. Great. Drag it into a simpler or a sampler, either way. And now I want to put it on loop. And I'm going to select just one little tiny piece of it to repeat. And I'm going to put a little crossfade because I made like a longer piece. If you do like a single cycle, you don't often need to crossfade. But now that'll give me a nice held note. And it'll be kind of glitchy and cool because I looped a longer piece of it. And now I can modulate it and look, make it into a riser. Yeah, always modulate the transpose instead of using pitch bend on the sampler. It works a lot better. Oh, it's a riser. Okay, so now this is how you make a spin back sound. I use this all the time. I have to try not to use this so much because it just always works for transitions, and it's real easy to do it a lot because it sounds great and it always works. But really, if you have a problem transition, this helps. So I put it on loop and I've reversed it. And now look at these envelope settings. So all the way up on the envelope, attack about 150 milliseconds, decay 1500 milliseconds, sustain all the way down. So it's going to go up 48 semitones and then down 48 semitones. And I'm putting the master transpose down -24 to compensate. And now C3 and legato. Legato makes it fill the whole clip. Now check it out. Perfect. All right, so now let's do some articulations with slicing to MIDI. So right click and slice the new MIDI track. I want to slice per 8th note, and I'm going to slice to single sampler. It's a sampler preset that I made, a slicing preset. It's good to make your own slicing presets. Right? Cool. Great. So we've got each of those slices. But now look, you can flip each slice individually backwards without changing the order of the notes. That's very hard to do in any other way. You have to reverse each of the notes independently, but having it forwards and backwards at the same time is awesome. I love that. Okay, now here's a quick little mud pie technique. So I'm using this rack. This is the switcheroo technique. This is another one of the techniques that I normally keep under my hat. So you get a multi-effect with a bunch of different chains that all have different effects. You put an expression control to the chain selector and set it to fully random. So you get a random effects chain each time there's a MIDI note. Oh! And then resample it, of course. And now check it out. Like, imagine how much automation editing that would have taken. That would have been like an hour of work. But yeah, so you do that, and then you go into the take lanes, select the areas that you think are promising, and hit enter. And then that will populate those selections up into the audio track that's actually playing, the part of the audio track that's playing. So take lanes are a cool way to kind of store maybe takes and then comp them together. And then here's the result. Easy. That's like so much glitchy articulation. Yeah, real simple, easy technique. And here's my official Ableton One Thing video with more on mud pies. This is when I unveiled the mud pies coinage, and took off from there.
Hi, I'm Il Gates, and one thing that I love to
Hi,
do
Il
is
Gates.
make chaotic recordings of parameter movements while resampling them. I call the file that results a mud pie. To begin, I route my source audio into a new audio track for sampling. Here I'm using echo, but any effect or combination of effects will work as long as it's generating chaos. I disable input filtering, turn the feedback down, change the dry wet to 100%, and then begin recording while drastically manipulating the time parameter. Finally, I'll go through and chop up all the best bits and cut them against the original track to make little fills and edits. I use this mud pie technique all the time. It's a great way to generate fresh ideas, and it saves me countless hours of editing automation.
Yeah, and you can see how that beat, it's like all the different sections and all the different articulations of the trapezoid, like that's the spark and the face, and it's just like the variations of it that take you through the sections made it so easy. We wrote that track in like 4 hours. It was nutty. All right, so let's talk about some more classic edits. I really like my illustration for classic edits. That was a pretty fun illustration. All right, so a fugue. One of you this week made a fugue when you were flipping your spark, right? So a fugue is a classical music technique where you'll have one MIDI melody and it'll be playing back in different directions simultaneously, or at different pitches simultaneously, or at different speeds simultaneously. So it's the same MIDI, but multiple iterations of that MIDI, multiple directions of that MIDI, multiple octaves of that MIDI, multiple timings of that same MIDI. And that has this really cool way of just like, it makes it all magically go because it's all from the same MIDI. And I'll show you a demo of that in a bit, but making a fugue is very, very cool. So I like to low pass sweep my pre-master bus. You remember in the bus mixing, if you want to put a low pass on everything except for the lead or everything except for the vocals, I recommend using an audio channel as a bus or a group as a bus, and then putting the low pass there. And it's really effective in a track with vocals when the entire instrumental is low passed and then the vocal comes in by itself. Really works, but works in instrumental music too. So don't sleep on that technique. Very effective. A lot of people sleep on low pass because they're like, low pass, that's boring. Everything has a low pass. What can you do with low pass? Well, it turns out lots of stuff. So a tape rewind effect is when you reverse a piece of audio at plus 24 pitch unwarped. So it's 2 octaves up, backwards, twice as fast. And that's how you get that classic like glitch mob tape rewind, like an audio cassette rewind effect. Really easy and good. I love loading the master of recording, or the main output recording, to a CDJ or vinyl, and then just scratching it and recording a bunch of my kind of shitty, unpracticed scratching. Because even if you suck at scratching, it's good enough for sampling and chopping up later. You know, like most of the practicing for scratching is like timing, and you can fix timing in a DAW. So even if you suck at scratching, load it up there and just wiggle your hand around a bit and make a bunch of samples. If you have a CDJ or like Serato or anything handy, even just like loading it into Rekordbox and grabbing the thing with the mouse, you can make scratches in Rekordbox just with your mouse and resample them, or like Virtual DJ or whatever. There's lots of ways to scrub with the mouse and sample it, as long as the pitch and the pitch and the time are connected, like in Ableton on repitch mode. I mean, you could even put a clip on repitch and do the Ableton master tempo if you have like if you have a clip on repitch while you're resampling, and then you crank the master tempo up and down, you can get some cool pitch bends that way. But yeah, I like using a CDJ or Serato and doing a bunch of shitty scratches and then chopping them up. You hear it in lots of my tracks. Granulating the master though, and then chopping little pieces of your mud pie of the granulated master outs to a drum rack. I do that all the time. There's lots of different granular synths. Granulator 1, 2, and 3 are included in Ableton. They're by Robert Henke, who is super awesome. Oh yeah, Rio, who's like, yo, I want to come to Denver. I did a studio session at his studio in North Carolina a while back, and we were all playing effects in real time on the Pioneer mixer and doing like real time slow down time stretches with like the Pioneer effects. We had all 3 of us manually automating the mixer for a resampling session. That was super fun. So he's been scratching on his CDJs a lot more. Yeah, and you can time stretch the CDJs do a real nice time stretch. Like when you do it down to like 1% speed, it sounds great. But yeah, granulating the master and then chopping granulated pieces of the master recording. Like I think Granulator 2 sounds best when you use it on like a full song. Like it just sounds really gnarly and cool. I like to make a sound pack, like a drum rack. I'll load all my stems into one drum rack, and then make like a little sound pack where I'll have like my kick here, my snare here, and then like maybe some glitchy pieces of the master, and then different other pieces of the stems from when I made stems. And then when I'm making a fill and I want to have a fill that's like rapidly cutting between pieces of different stems, if you just have a drum rack with the same stems, but like in MIDI, it's really nice to have control over all of the channels in one instrument when you're making fills. It's really nice to have control over all of the separate channels in one instrument, because, you know, the typical way of working in a DAW is where each channel or group is not controllable at the same time as another group. You know, like you have to only control each of them individually. And when you take the stems and put them all into a single drum rack for making fills, you can basically make like a remix of the track for a bar to make a fill. That works great. Okay. The Midnight EQ3 preset in Ableton is like the perfect lo-fi telephone effect. Minnesota showed me that, and I have been using it ever since. But it's this preset, like EQ3, the sound of it is just kind of shitty. It's like an inherently lo-fi sounding EQ for some weird reason. But the Midnight EQ3 preset, it works with the kind of shittiness of EQ3, and it sounds great. It's like the perfect lo-fi telephone effect. The delay melt effect, you'll hear me do this all the time, and I have a rack called the One Knob Doubler that is basically sweeping delay times in a range between 15 to 150 milliseconds, and that's how you get that like weird like bubbly melting delay effect where it's like goes from being like a comb filter to being like super like melting delays. Shit sounds really cool, especially when the delays are on repitch mode. So try having a delay effect that when it's active sweeps the time between 15 and 150 milliseconds, and you will get like super melty, cool, bubbly wildness. And then the arpeggiator grind. This is really cool. If you take a channel, like the first note of a sound, or maybe even just the master outs of your recording, put it into a sampler, and then put an arpeggiator on unsynced, so it's not quantized, and then you sweep the retrigger time on the arpeggiator from 15 to 150 milliseconds. When it goes below 30 milliseconds, it makes like a tone, so you can be like like that effect. That's how you make that fill, is you load your resampled recording into an arpeggiator or into a sampler, and then cue it at the hit that you want to grind, and then you put an arpeggiator, only one note on the arpeggiator. The arpeggiator, all it's doing is retriggering a C3, and then you sweep the time from like 15 to around 150 milliseconds, and you get these awesome like, and then like you hear a lot in psytrance too, where they'll have like a big transition, and they might do it like from 15 to like 500 milliseconds, and that would be like, and then the drop happens. It sounds so cool. It's like another one of those tricks, like the record rewind trick, that just always works for transitions. But yeah, so those kind of classic edits, if you try each one of those, you will find that they're like so useful. Like they just always sound good, no matter what genre, etc. This just always sounds good. Okay, so let's see a demo of a fugue, because a fugue is such a cool compositional technique, and one of you did it in your flips, so I want to show you that. But there's no better way to demonstrate it than the demo video for one of my favorite iPad apps, Fugue Machine. And this just shows you visually what a fugue is, and it shows you how this one Bach piece was a fugue. Pretty sick, right? But yeah, you can do that just with MIDI editing. You know, you don't need the Fugue Machine app, but just like once you know what a fugue is, you can try it, and it really works. It's a super cool technique. I use it all the time. All right, so here is some more cool techniques. So new track in the sampler, and I'm going to make a clip to trigger that and put a C3, and then hit legato to fill the clip. And now I'm going to get our friend, the arpeggiator. I'm going to take it off of sync. I'm going to set the maximum value and then right click and show modulation. And now I'm going to ramp up to the maximum value. And this is that arpeggiator trick I was telling you about. This is what it sounds like. Right? Real easy trick. That took like 2 seconds. In fact, I think I'm going to play this again for those of you who didn't catch it because it's pretty useful. So this could be a track, it could be a channel, it could be whatever. So I'm just taking a recording, putting it over onto a new simpler or sampler, either way, doesn't matter. New clip, C3, legato, which fills the note. And now I'm going to get an arpeggiator, and I'm going to take it off of sync and set the maximum timing value that I want. Then right click, show modulation, and then just drag a ramp down, a ramp of modulation. It's going to ramp up to that maximum value. So sick. Like it's as simple as it's as simple and effective as the reverse reverb trick, simpler, even faster, that's for sure. And it sounds really glitchy and cool, and it just works awesome. All right, so let's talk about transitions. Because what are you doing with a transition? Well, it is all in the delivery, okay? So I like to say, don't write sections when you're composing, write transitions. Don't write sections, write transitions, okay? And don't compose parts, compose spectra. Okay, so like a player will really care a lot about like, hey, what notes are being played on what instruments? And when you're first getting into music, the tendency is to be like, what instruments, how are these sounds being made? And because you're still thinking about like in band paradigm, you know, you're thinking about people playing instruments on a stage. And that's just not what electronic music is like. You know, the producer is playing the whole song. The spectrum of sonic possibility is itself the instrument, right? Composing the dynamics of the spectrum is the instrument itself. It doesn't matter how any of the sounds were created. It doesn't matter what instruments those sounds were created on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. All that matters is the emotional impact of these different spectral dynamics. So like a player will be like, oh, I think, you know, moving to the G sharp from this scale, I'm going to borrow a G sharp from this scale, and that'll really give that chord a feeling of loss through necessary abandonment or some pretentious shit, right? Whereas a producer will be like, I need more highs, but like fizzy, you know? So like think about it in terms of just abstract texture. Like it doesn't matter what the instruments are. It doesn't matter what the notes are. It doesn't matter how anything is made. All that matters is like, what are the dynamics of the different portions of the spectrum? So when I'm like shopping for sounds in my song, well, not shopping literally, but like, I'm like, oh, I need something. Usually I'm thinking like, I need more like sparkles up top, or I need more fizz, or I need something more prickly, or I need like a muffled wide noise here, or I need things to be far away. You know, that's how like a producer thinks, right? So think about like, what are the dynamics of the spectrum? And when you think about the dynamics of the spectrum, it becomes much, much, much easier to make a satisfying drop, right? So transitions especially are all about spectral dynamics. Drops, it's like a sudden change in the spectral dynamics, a sudden change in the spectral dynamics, right? So remember our 5 mix dimensions. You've got the 3 extremes and the 2 sensitivities. So 3 extremes, highs above 8K, subs below 80 hertz, and then the side only signal, and then the 2 sensitivities. You've got the pain zone between 2 and 5K, and the transients, right? So when you want a drop, when you want a drop to work, you want to create contrast using those 5 mixed dimensions. So you want to feel like it suddenly opens up somehow in those 5 dimensions. So how do you create contrast? Well, remember, habituation attenuates repetitive stimuli. Habituation attenuates repetitive stimuli. Remember your stinky friend who doesn't think they need deodorant, and you're like, how do you not know you stink? It's because of habituation, right? So if a peak of a buildup is loud and intense, how is a minimal drop? And I encourage you to start making minimal drops, because minimal drops sound real nice on big format sound systems. In your home studio, complicated sounds nice, but on a PA system with big subs, minimal sounds nice, because you want all of the gain going to that fucking sub. You want all the gain going to that sub, right? So how is a minimal drop going to sound more than a loud, intense, compositionally dense buildup? That's often a problem people will have. Is like, their buildup will have like 3 different risers and like rolling kicks and rolling snares, but like with a different rhythm. And then there'll be like a melody happening, and like everything is just so much, there might be 10 fucking layers because you're going for maximum intensity. It's the peak of a buildup. It's supposed to be super intense. So how's a drop that's just like a kick and a sub and a snare going to sound more than that, right? Well, I put it to you that you need to have a palate cleanser of some kind, like when you have a piece of ginger in between sushi rolls at a sushi restaurant. You want to break your old pattern and make way for the new, right? So the easiest way to do this is to make what's known as a pre-drop, right? A pre-drop often uses silence, or silence followed by a turnaround sound that takes you into the drop. The classic kind of like cliche pre-drop would be a big build-up into an impact noise, and then sandstorm, right? Or maybe it's a dubstep song where it's got like 1, 2, 3, go, and then the drop, right? So that's kind of the cliche way to do it, but it's cliche because it works. It always works. No one's mad about it. Always works. So some people will, have like a pre-drop where there's like a long section of not like where the drums are gone and all the risers are gone. They'll start with an impact. There'll be one sound by itself for 4 bars, then 3 bars of drum build, and then silence, turnaround sound, drop, right? But there's lots of other ways to do it. So I'm often like making tons of new, I will remake the pre-drops and the end of the build-up, but that pre-drop section, I will often remake like 5 versions of that section before I find a section that I like. So some transition techniques. So the pre-drop section, think about it as like a whole turnaround section. There's lots of negative space. There's one motif, it builds to the climax, and then silence for a bar, turnaround, drop. So it's like a turnaround extended into a whole section, right? A sample rise is where you take a short loop of a sample and then slowly pitch it up plus 12, as I showed you in that earlier audio editing demo. Checkerboarding is what I call composing when you are having a variety of sounds taking turns. Call and response properly is like the dynamic that you would get in like spiritual work songs from like the old days of enslaved peoples, where you would have one person who is doing the call and then the group would do the answer as a chorus. And call and response typically is back and forth between two things. So I like to use the term checkerboarding to distinguish this compositional style from call and response, because there are no worthy differences. And the main difference is that that in checkerboarding, you have a wide variety of sounds that are taking turns. And usually, like, people will do this with bass sounds where they'll have, like, bass one go yup yup, and then there'll be a snare, and then bass two will go ah ya 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 ya, and then there'll be another snare, and then bass three will go rip, and then bass four will go yup yup yup, and then bass five will go etc. And they just like, it's like you've heard it a million times in every song in bass music. Well, when you actually look at the sequencer of a producer who's doing that, it's pretty much just like this kind of checkerboard looking thing. So I call it checkerboarding. And the tendency is to do this just with bass sounds. So I like to have more colorful checkers, and this would be a less than 2 bar long portion of sound where the sound is by itself, solo, checkerboard style, but maybe it's a lick of an arpeggiator, maybe it's a vocal, maybe it's a turntable rewind, just something other than bass, something other than whatever your checkerboard has been, because you can checkerboard things other than basses. But if you establish a pattern, so remember, habituation, even a checkerboard you can become used to a checkerboard given enough repetition, right? So you want to violate the repetition even of the checkerboard, right? So that's where the color checker technique comes in. And this is where you go, what do all these checkers have in common? How are they all black and white? And how can I paint with a colorful brush here? Right? So then you have a short piece of something that is the opposite of what the checkerboard has been composed of for a while. Like a piece of ginger at sushi, palette cleanser, right? I will often use master effects, DJ style effects on the main outs. I will frequently do that, or, I'll do it on a pre-bus. If I'm doing the technique where I don't want it to affect the vocal, I'll have the vocal go directly to the main outs and then everything in the song go to this pre-bus, and then put like classic DJ style effects, like all of my DJ effects racks, I'll use them when I'm producing. The scratch rack is a really cool rack. I learned this from Moldover, but if you put a delay on 100% wet, no filter or sync, and then time modulate to scratch the pitch, that was what I did in my Mud Pies demo. It's a really good trick. You can do it with any delay that has a repitch feature. The Redux high pass is really cool when you need to escape the tuning of a given scale or chord. I frequently do this in a DJ set if I am mixing into a new track that is out of key. And I want to basically break the key that I'm in so that my ears just lose that tuning. Well, sample rate reduction will create related but inharmonic sidebands. So you get like a tuning, but it's not, you can tell it's related to the frequencies that are there, but it's not harmonically related to the frequencies that are there. You can tune sample rate reduction by making the sample rate double the frequency of what you want, but you can also use like a sample rate reduction to just like clear your ears of a tuning, and it's very effective in a DJ transition. It's also effective if you're having trouble resolving a chord progression, right? Using sample rate reduction or bit reduction can be just like a great way to just make everything come apart. Right? So I use that all the time when I want to escape the tuning of something, right? And then one of the best transitions for drops is what I call a drop rack. And a drop rack is where you slowly ramp down maybe 2 decibels of gain, just imperceptible, maybe 20% of the width. Like you go from like, 100% width down to like 80% of the width. And then minus 2 dB at the very highs, minus 2 dB at the very lows. And you just slowly creep that down imperceptibly as your breakdown and buildup progresses. And then at the end of the breakdown, surprise, bitches! You can open that shit up like a birthday present. Because a good drop should be like a birthday present, right? You know that surprise is coming, but what's it gonna be? What's in the wrapping paper, right? So yeah, that's the drop rack. Very, very useful technique for creating the birthday surprise that is a good drop. All right, so your challenge is to do phase 3, to remix some high quality stems and finish, to check out some of these different techniques that I've shared, because there's a whole buffet of editing techniques contained in this class. The easy version of this would be to just render stems of your sample flip and have at it. The medium version of this would be to go to one of your older projects, or perhaps a song you were working on outside of Beatmaker Bootcamp. Do phase 3 on that. And then if you've got time, you can try my 3 versions recipe. And I will often do the 3 versions recipe where I do half an hour to an hour per remix, because it is much, much faster when you're starting from almost finished stems. Okay? So that is your challenge. And there is the spiffy challenge slide. So how to go to phase 3, once again, you make a save point for safety, because it's digital, so you want to be able to go back like before you fight the boss of a video game. You want to render all your tracks or groups, but if you're rendering sounds in groups, make sure that you are not overlapping sounds accidentally. There may be times when you want overlapping sounds, but you should make sure that they're only overlapping because you want them to overlap. You don't want them to be overlapping by accident. Then step 3 would be to load those stems into your project and make a new save. Then step 4, articulate your parts with remix tracks. Step 5, fine-tune all transitions. Step 6 would be make a set of stems again for the final mix, because often you will go real ham in phase 3 and you won't have enough CPU left to run the fancy mixing plugins and like linear phase EQ, Pro Q3, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, that is your final challenge, and the winner of this final challenge is gonna get some red carpet treatment at Producer Dojo. Let me tell ya, yeah, you're gonna get access to the producer's path, and you are gonna get some one-on-ones with me to get you ready for the producer's path. I'm gonna listen to your music, give you personalized advice and guidance on the producer's path. And throughout your course of the producer's path, there is a special channel in Discord where you can get direct feedback in writing directly from me whenever you need it. So yeah, pretty cool prize. We'll be in direct contact, and I'll help you through the course personally. So, what do you learn in the course? What's the most important thing that you learn in the course? Well, in addition to all these bread and butter staple techniques that you'll use the rest of your life, habits are the foundation of absolutely everything as a music producer. Habits. Why are habits important? Well, habits conserve willpower, okay? Because decision fatigue, of course, is a real thing. Willpower is what we call it when we are resisting temptation, actively resisting temptation, such as, laziness or getting high all the time or whatever, right? Discipline is what we call active habit creation, or, sustaining a habit under duress was often referred to as discipline, but active habit creation, really. And once you have a habit suggested, right? Once you have a habit established, you can basically go on to autopilot and you don't have decision fatigue anymore. That's the power of habit. I don't have to make myself make music anymore. After 50,000 plus studio hours logged, it's harder for me to make myself stop making music than it is to make myself make music. Like watching TV or movies does not really appeal to me. Going out and just getting high for its own sake with a bunch of people and talking about whatever does not really appeal to me. What appeals to me is making music. And I have all of these goals and plans and tracks that I'm working on that I'm obsessed with. Stopping is harder than starting at this point because of the power of habit. And I can do way more stuff than I used to be able to do in a day because I don't have to think about anything. I can just iterate. I can just shut my brain off and go. And habit writes my songs. I don't write my songs. Habit writes my songs, right? So how do you make a new habit? Well, there's some really cool research in this field from Lally, and they found that a new habit takes from 18 to 254 days on average. It was around 68, I think. I always tell people 90 days to be safe. 90 days is kind of the common wisdom because 60, I think it was like 60 or 68 was the average. And then you want to have a buffer zone for the people on the other side of the bell curve. So 90 basically gets all of the bell curve, but none of the laggards, because there are some people that it takes 254 days, but they're rare. Right? So 90 days is really what it takes to establish a new habit until that autopilot kicks in, and it's harder to get out of the studio than it is to get into the studio. Okay? So all you really, like, if you're trying to go from like, I want to make music to I am constantly making music, like that's the most important thing, not the plugins, not the audio skills, not anything else. The habit is what will take you to the mountain, right? So if you want to go from the habit of being a procrastinator to the habit of killing it, 90 days, one decision in 90 days. So, like it doesn't take any discipline for me at all to make music. Like it does not take any discipline whatsoever because that habit is so entrenched. And if you want that habit for yourself so that it does not take discipline to make music, 90 days of willpower. That's a finite amount. 90 days. Cross off 90 X's on the calendar of 5 minutes a day in the studio or more. Cross off 90. Get a streak going. Don't miss more than one in a row. If you do that, that's it, right? So good habits that I encourage every music producer to potentially explore: journaling, meditating, cooking your own food, eating healthy, exercise, budgeting and saving. Each one of those habits will make your music making much better in some way, and in a very dramatic way, way better than whatever plugin you guys saw an ad for on Instagram today. Those habits are way better than any of those things, okay? And all it takes is 90 days. If you want to establish any of these habits, all it takes is 90 days. All right, so let's talk about motivation. So Ed Desi at the University of Rochester, very, very cool psychologist, and his team at Rochester in the 70s blew open B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning model that was treating humans like Pavlov's dog salivating at the sound of a bell. That used to be how we thought humans worked. It is under certain circumstances, but not when it comes to art. Okay, so Ed Desi and his team, they found out that there are two kinds of motivation in humans. There is, on the one hand, extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic is external, hence the X at the beginning of it. And this is, where we work to gain reward and avoid punishment, the carrot and the stick, in other words, right? Rewards are motivating for extrinsically motivated behaviors. This is great for the workplace, and it is not so great for creativity. Oh, something funky happened to my slide. Sorry, I copied these in from another workshop, so they're acting a bit funny. So yeah, it's great for the workplace. It often inhibits creativity. And then there is intrinsic motivation. Here, you know what? This is gonna fucking bother me. I'm gonna just fix that. Give me 1 second. just move that skateboard and money symbol. All right, let's go back to it. All right, cool. So, yeah, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation is external, to seek gain, to avoid punishment. Rewards are motivating, good for the workplace, bad for creativity. Intrinsic motivation is internal. This is where the activity itself is rewarding. The activity is perhaps part of your identity. So that's just why I chose skateboarding as the icon. Rewards can demotivate, but it fosters creativity. And yeah, rewards can be bad for creativity. That's why, you know, when your favorite band gets famous, that second album syndrome kicks in, and you know, you start paying people for what they used to do for free, and then suddenly it's not all about the music, man, and they get sad, and that's why. All right, so Gail Matthews at Dominican University out in Cali, she found 3 goal-setting factors that were able to more than double the rate of goal achievement if used together. First one is clarify your vision, improving your aim. I like to have people make a SMART plan, specific, measurable actions on a realistic timeline. Specific, measurable actions on a realistic timeline. Be a musician is not an action. Make a beat today is. You put make a beat today on a calendar every day, you will become a musician. You put be a musician on the calendar, what does that even mean? Right? Specific, measurable actions on a realistic timeline. That's what SMART stands for. Okay? And then formally commit to that vision. This is super, super important. Write it down, get it done. That's the motto. Write it down, get it done. Clarify your vision, improve your aim, make a SMART plan, specific, measurable actions on a realistic timeline, put them on the calendar, formally commit to those. Okay? So, factor number 2, other than clarifying your vision, is sharing your commitment to your plan with others. This taps into unconscious biological programming. Humans are social animals. We give a shit about what other people think, even if we pretend we don't. We do. This creates outcome pressure. And, you know, it just taps into unconscious biological shit, makes it useful. And then the third factor is regular accountability with a respected accountability partner. Weekly check-ins worked best. They tried bi-weekly, they tried daily, they tried bi-monthly, and they tried monthly, and they tried one at the end. And they found out that weekly check-ins were the best. So you only have to do 12 of them. You can find someone that you can do this with, maybe even someone in Beatmaker Bootcamp or in the Producer Dojo Discord that will help you team up and be accountability partners. People get a lot of value from this. So factor 1, clarify your vision. Factor 2, share your commitment to your plan from your vision step. And then factor 3, weekly accountability. Weekly, okay? So another great way to take advantage of psychology to motivate yourself is a phenomenon called loss aversion. Loss aversion is a cognitive bias where we value the pain from loss more than we value the pleasure from gain. It is worse to lose $100 than it is good to find $100 on the ground. Most of the time, humans will rate the value of losses more than gains. There is a classic example of a tennis club where, let's say that you have a tennis club and there is an outdoor court that you can play at for free, weather permitting, and there is an indoor court that you are guaranteed a match if you pay $50 a week in advance. And then what happens when you arrive on a nice day where the sun is shining and the birds are chirping and the gentle breeze blows your hair and dries your sweat ever so pleasantly? Do people play outside or do they play inside? Well, the $50 is spent. There's no getting that $50 back. It is a non-refundable deposit. The $50 is gone either way. But to avoid the pain of loss, 80% of people will play the stinky indoor tennis court where it smells like ball sack rather than playing outside with the breeze and the birds, because they will feel that they will have lost their $50, that they will have spent their $50 in vain. People are irrational, but we are predictably irrational. So anytime you put down money on something music related, you are tapping into that. You know, this is why a lot of people will buy a bunch of gear that slowly starts collecting dust, and then they'll be sitting there looking at the dusty gear and be like, I remember when I saw that shit on Instagram, I had to have it. And now $2,000 later, it's just taking up space on my desk. What does that say about me? What does that even mean? Who am I? Am I a poser? Fuck, I gotta finally do this. And then they do it because they don't want the money on that gear to be spent in vain. Right? So betting on yourself is cool. You know, I once became vegan out of spite. I had a breakdance crew where everybody in my breakdance crew was all straight edge and vegan, and I would smoke weed and drink coffee all the time and eat whatever. And they would rip on me, and I'd be stoned and unable to defend myself and just be like, oh God, this sucks, these fucking vegetables. And then one day, it was New Year's, and they were like, hey, we're having a bet, you know, no animal products, no tobacco or alcohol or drugs, and then meeting up once a week to work out for, I think it was like 3 months, which was pretty coincidental because that's like 90 days. And they were like, everybody's got to put in $50. And if you fail once, you forfeit your $50. And they thought I would be easy prey. And I was like, oh, you fuckers were making fun of me. You were getting away with it because I was stoned. But you are doubting the levels of spite that you have caused in my soul. I will show you fuckers. And I did. One by one, I watched them all fall. One of them was because I lent him money to buy weed, but it was less than the $50. And then I had to learn that lifestyle. And after that 90 days, I was like, I'm going to celebrate with a piece of pizza. I'm going to buy some cheese pizza with pepperoni with your fucking vegan money. And then I ate that cheese pizza and had terrible indigestion and nightmares. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And, you know, I was vegan for like 15 years after that because of the 90-day habit creation thing. And also because I was allergic to milk and eggs and I didn't know it. So I felt a lot better trying a vegan diet. I thought it was the vegan thing. Actually, it was dairy and egg allergies. But hey, you learn all kinds of stuff in your life. So yeah. And then that was how I learned to cook. And thus Ill Plates was born. Stick.com with 2 Ks is a fun way to bet on yourself. You appoint someone as like the referee, they're called, and then they're your accountability partner. But I don't know. I don't recommend it that much because there's this thing with like the anti-charities where you pick a charity that you'll have to donate to if you fuck up. And I had a few people who had to donate to like Donald Trump's re-election campaign or like some fucking pro-life charity or whatever. And they were so bummed about it afterwards. I mean, it is kind of funny, but it's also like, directly harming the world. So, maybe don't do the anti-charity thing. But there are other ways to do this stuff that costs $0. And one of my favorite ways to tap into loss aversion is Nietzsche's eternal recurrence thought exercise. So that's the official Nietzsche quote that you can read, but I kind of like to do it a little bit differently. I wrote out a version of this. Let's see, hang on. I should have probably got this. Yeah, I'm working on a book. I'm like almost done. I'm almost done this book, and I wrote out of it. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna freestyle it. Whatever. Okay, so close your eyes and take a deep breath. Like really do it. Like really eyes closed. I'm not changing the slide or anything. Like just close your eyes and take a deep breath. Okay, another one. Another one. Breathe in. Breathe out. All right, so imagine you're surrounded by darkness. You're dead. But instead of going to heaven or going to hell or being reincarnated or whatever else, You are sitting here comfortably, albeit in total darkness. As the lights come on, you see a thick red curtain in front of you. You turn your head left and right. Your seat is one of many movie theater seats in an old-timey movie theater with the red velvet chairs with folding bottoms. You look around the screen and it's got those gold floral themed edges, and there's a couple of box seats on the side. You've been staring at the box seat for a moment before you realize a spotlight is shining on the stage, and there is a figure in a tuxedo and a top hat with a void of inky blackness for a face. They gesture their white gloved hands to you, showing that they are the host, then step to the side and point their hands at the growing crack in the center of the screen as they walk off stage. The lights dim once more and a film begins to play. It starts with the sound of clanking metal and a woman shrieking. You hear the word push yelled over and over again as the sounds of adult tears are joined by the tears of a mewling infant that you grow to realize is yourself. These are your parents. This is your birth scene. As it plays out without edits, you watch and watch and watch, expecting a cut, expecting something else to happen, but no, you're watching your life play in real time, watching it take years and years as you slowly develop into a child, and then into a teenager, and then into an adult, watching yourself make every decision you've ever made again with no control over your actions from your seats in the movie theater. You start to freak out and try the doors, but every exit you find simply leads back into the opposite side like a 1980s video game. Eventually, you sit down and just watch because there's nothing else to do. Hey, at least you don't have to go to the bathroom. As these scenes play out, you are forced to ask yourself, how do I feel about these decisions? Which scenes do you love to watch again? Which do you hate? Are there decisions you want to tell people about? Are there decisions you're proud of? Are there decisions that are satisfying? Are there decisions that make you feel shame or laziness? Are there decisions that were mistakes? Are there decisions that you regret? By whose standards do you judge these decisions? All the people telling you you should do this, that, or the other are long gone. It's just you in this theater watching your life play like a movie again and again and again with no control over anything except whether your eyes are open or shut. How do you feel about the decisions? Whose standards do you hold those decisions to? What do you love? What do you hate? What makes you proud? What makes you feel regret? And although this is just a thought exercise, it cuts to the core of a lot of the kind of existential blah that we repress in our society. It forces us to ask, what are we even fucking doing? You know, what are we even doing? And we're so used to being judged by the standards of others. We're so used to being judged by some imaginary overseer, but at the end of the day, it's your life. And if you're living to impress some parent or grandparent, chances are they'll be long dead before your moment of reckoning. And that's what makes the eternal recurrence thought exercise so powerful. Because as much as it's a thought exercise, it is real. All right, you can open your eyes. Here's the next slide. So we know it's real because of a hospice nurse named Bronnie Ware. And she wrote an amazing book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And a hospice nurse is someone who nurses people who are dying through their final moments. And you talk to them and hold their hand and treat them nice. There are 5 top regrets that seem to be universal among the dying. And scientists have checked it out after she wrote the book, and she found out that they are true. And it is like these were written for musicians. Check it out. Regret number 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. Regret number 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I'm guessing by work they mean selling your time to the boss. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Regret number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Regret number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. So, yeah, eternal recurrence. It's a made-up scenario where you're in a movie theater with a demon. But is it? Is it that made up? Is it that imaginary? Not really, actually, if you ask people who are dying. So, think about it. Think about it, okay? When you're trying to find motivation to do the things you want to do, to live the life you want to live, to love the people you want to love, to feel the things you want to feel, right? You can't take any of your material possessions with you when you go. Seems like you can take regret, though. You know what no one regrets? Not spending more time on social media. This is nobody's regret. This scenario is entirely fictitious, okay, portrayed in this slide. That is not real. That is not real. No one ever is like, oh, I wish I'd spend more time on Facebook. The likes unliked. The comments uncommented. Oh, what will Zuck think of me when I reach the afterlife? So if you want to do music, commit, okay? Ask a real musician why they do it. They will tell you because they have to. It's who they are. It's their identity. It's what they do. It's their purpose. You either feel it or you don't. It's up to you. No one's making you make music. No one's making you be an artist. It's up to you. Just got to ask, is this who I am or not? You know, do I have to do this or not? It's a lot easier to maintain discipline on things you know you have to do. All right? So if you do feel that, commit. Write it down. Get it done. Write it down. Get it done. That is how independent thinkers operate. That is how independently successful people operate. Write it down. Get it done. No one's holding a gun to your head making you be successful. You have to do that to yourself. You have to do that to yourself. And writing your thoughts and looking at them is a way of being your own overseer. Okay? It's a way of being your own accountability partner. Having an accountability partner is very important, especially when you're just starting with this stuff. But eventually, you will be able to do this for yourself. And you'll be like, no, I don't want to fucking watch the latest stupid crap that people are into, or, you know, go just do some dumb fucking thing that you're just doing because it's what's done, you know? It's a lot easier to say no to that stupid shit when you know you have to. You have shit to do. Like, I'm not tempted by a lot of things because I'm just like, no, I got my plan. I got my things that I would die for, you know, and I'm doing those. Like, sorry, you guys have fun. All right. Deadlines are great. One of the easiest commitments if you want like a baby deadline, because people always tell me, I need a deadline. I need a deadline. Give me a deadline. And that's why, like, you know, having these deadlines for the challenges, people stepped up. Like, people stepped up. They made a lot of cool stuff this week, right? So really good low stakes deadline is to pick someone you love and make them a birthday song or a song for their wedding or something. It's like one of the best deadlines you can make. And when you give someone a custom homemade song as a present, it's nothing but net. It's not like testing a track on strangers. It's the opposite of that. They're going to fucking go a wet, gooey one and give you a big hug and be like, no one's ever done anything like this for me before. I'm so touched. It is the most encouraging thing. It's the most like fish in a barrel audience. There's no way to fuck it up, basically. I mean, there are, you know, I don't know, but there are ways. But, you know, you'd have to be like, oh, I'm going to mash up like Hitler speeches and Justin Bieber. That'll be a good birthday present. Like, you know, there's ways to fuck it up. But it's a really low stakes way to show someone you love them and to make a song and have a real deadline, because a birthday has a real deadline, a wedding has a real deadline. Yeah, there's Dave. We made Dave a birthday song for his birthday when we were in Hawaii one time, and it's pretty great. Happy birthday, Dave. Oh, it's such a good song. Another great way to commit. Smart plan, specific measurable actions on a realistic timeline. Specific measurable actions on a realistic timeline, not just a wish. Goal without a plan is just a wish. A goal without a plan is just a wish. Wishing ain't going to get you anywhere. So write it down, sign it, post it in your house, put it on your fridge, put your smart plan on your fucking fridge. So you have to look at it every day so that people you know will see it and ask you about it. That is very motivating. Okay. Let everybody know and give yourself no choice for 90 days. Set super small goals, like 5 minutes of studio a day, super small for 90 days. And so we've done this Remix Your Life program lots of times. And we've talked to the people who have won and the people who have failed. And we found that these small, achievable goals that take 5 minutes or less, that's what you want. You don't want to be like, I'm going to work out for an hour and then I'm going to cook every meal from scratch. And then I'm going to clean my house for an hour every morning. And then, you know, like if you go too hardcore on that, it's just like, you'll eventually be like, I want to be free. I don't want to be a prisoner of routine. You know, routine can set you free or it can become a prison. And it's the size of the goals and the time commitment that makes it either liberating or, you know, limiting, right? So, yeah, anyway, we do these, we've done our own research at the dojo doing these habit tracking challenges and stuff for a long, long time. And here's an interview with the Remix Your Life champ of, I think it was 2021, our Remix Your Life 2021 champ, and check it out.
What's up, Dojo fam? Squidot here. I am super pumped to say that I have accomplished 100% of my goals for the first quarter of Remixing My Life. It wasn't always easy, but I pushed through the difficult parts. I had a lot of close calls, and I got it done. So I picked up a lot of great daily habits. I've been journaling every day, reading. I've gotten 13 books read. I've been doing yoga and exercising, meditating daily, which has been super powerful. I have followed every ninja on the Ninja Scroll and listened to their music, which has been very inspiring. I've watched 43 weekly download or Dojo TV streams. I've been in the studio every single day working in Ableton, and I've gotten 104 beats done total during the challenge. I also put in weekly sessions to try and get those beats into more complete songs. So I've done 59 of those sessions, anywhere from an hour and a half up to 5 hours. And I was able to complete 5 songs, and I have many more in various stages of completion there as well. I've entered both dojo sparring tourneys, which was a super fun challenge, and the meta community there is just amazing. I have been working on my belts. I got my blue belt near the beginning of the challenge and am partway to my green belt as we speak. And on top of all of it, I have started an online business with my wife. We have a lot of ideas and growth there, so I'm super excited for that, and we'll just see where that takes us. But I just wanted to thank Dylan everyone at the dojo, everyone behind the scenes, the senseis. You guys are super awesome. Last but not least, just a huge shout out to the community. You guys are the glue that holds everything together. You guys are super inspiring, super humbling, just so helpful and welcoming. I'm very happy that I found the dojo and that I'm able to call you guys my family. So thank you so much for everything, and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace out.
Yeah, homeboy came in from nothing. Never made music really, you know? He'd fucked around, but had never actually sat down to make music and did that. So, yes, that is the power of commitment and the power of what the Producer's Path contains. So the Producer's Path is a new 90-day linear course that is built on all of the research that we did at the dojo and all of our experience training at the dojo, and we're able to get a year worth of dojo results in 90 days. You will make music that you're proud of, or I will give you your money back straight up. Like, if you do all the steps, you will have music that you like and that you can show people, and that people will be like, this is dope, right? Like that happens. It's like building a machine, you know? Like, it's like, as you can see, the systems in the course are like, it's just shit that works. Like, it's just totally practical. And if you just build that habit and follow the steps, you'll end up with cool stuff. And it's less than half the price of what a year in the dojo used to cost. Replaces the old Producer Dojo membership and the weekly download. It has 12 themed weeks that build. You've just done like a kind of light version of, this is the 5th one. And there's both philosophy and skill building sessions. There's prep assignments and studio assignments each week. There's a big catch-up library that has a bunch of reference videos in case you're like, oh, wait, what is thing X? What is thing Y? There's reference videos that have, like, intro to Ableton, how side chaining works, the deep dive on the Ableton sampler, like all these different things that not everybody needs, but if you want them, they're nice to have. So there's a big catch-up library there, and then you own it forever. It's not a subscription. And you can get 12 Sensei sessions at half the price that they used to cost if you buy them as a group of 12. And you can also turn in your work as short videos to get video feedback. And, I encourage you to do the Sensei sessions weekly and to do the course in 12 weeks, at least the first time you do it, because of the habit formation portion. And then, every month I will do some kind of a group call. But right now I'm doing them every week. So you can join the existing Producers Path group when the calls go out live. So, and then there's also community access in the Discord, and you can get the ill methodology bundle and the ill methodology workshop. That was the workshop that really put me on the map with a lot of producers and many people who went on to become world famous artists. This is how they did it. So, I want to thank you all for coming. I'm really excited to welcome our new Producers Path members. Producers Path is back on Wednesday night next week at 7 p.m. Pacific. It's a nighttime class because that fits into a lot of people's schedules a bit more than doing them at noon. But thank you for coming for all 5 of these classes. I really appreciate you. It's been really awesome to see all of your development and see all the cool music that you made and to see how hard you're all hustling out there. I'm excited to get to know you more in the dojo. If you want to get down with the Denver thing, there's not very many spots on that. And those spots also, the people who are doing the Denver thing get spots at the summit too. So if the Denver spots go, the summit spots, there's like 1 spot at each of the summits. And usually when I do these studio things, they go pretty quick. So if you want to do Denver, email support@producerdojo.com. If you want to get down at the summits, I've posted the link in the chat. And these are like real small groups, like basically one-on-one level small. And they're going to be like all day. Medic asked, does the EDM cookbook and beat timer challenges come with the producer's path? Yeah, all the recipes are in it, all the challenges. Like it's basically the best parts of the dojo in one course, and it's really affordable. And it's not subscription. It never expires. But we are probably going to raise the price. Everybody's been telling me that I need to raise the price. And like, it's to the point where like a lot of people telling me to raise the price are like people who bought it. Like, it's funny. They're like, you should be charging way more for this, dude. I'm like, I don't know. I always try to do affordable stuff, but you know, I just did Beatmaker Bootcamp for free. So, you know, you can't hate. You can't hate. I still kick it down with the free stuff. Yeah, at Producer Dojo on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube already, you know, get down because we do free stuff there. You know, we're not all about the Benjamins, but everybody does tell me that we should be charging more for this stuff. And I think maybe if I charged more people would believe me when I'm like, yeah, I trained all these world-class artists and like invented mud pies and 128s and sold the first ever DJ templates and have spent 50,000 hours in the studio. Like, I think people would believe me more if I charged more, but yeah, people tell me it's stupid cheap for what it is. So we are raising the price. This is probably the last time it's going to be available at that price. So, yeah, don't miss out. Not only can you get in and, you know, get at the lowest price that it's going to be ever, but you'll be able to join us as we do it live every Wednesday. All right. Lots of love. Thank you so much for being a part of Beatmaker Bootcamp. Big up everybody behind the scenes at the dojo, especially my partner Dave and Katie and Andy, who's it was the Beatmaker Bootcamp was Andy's idea. So big shout outs to Andy. Yeah, you can use other DAWs. I mean, it's about like Jaffrey Burke one. I hope I said your name right. Yeah, it's about as Ableton specific as the Beatmaker Bootcamp was. Like all of these techniques, you could do them in Ableton or whatever. There's some like, you know, every now and then I'll be like, oh yeah, here's a quirk of the Ableton sampler, or like here's some Ableton shortcuts or whatever, but you could do it in whatever DAW. Like I watch like FL Studio tutorials all the time. I do MPC stuff in Ableton all the time. Like a lot of the lessons here were adapted from stuff that I learned from using the MPC, you know? So a DAW is a DAW. As long as you can resample, a DAW is a DAW, basically. As long as you got resampling, a clipper, volume levels on a mixer. That's all you really need. It's really just putting sounds in an order, you know, putting sounds in an order and expressing yourself, you know. Digging is so much more important than what DAW you use or what techniques or plugins you use. Like what is the meaning of the music? How are you putting yourself into the music? How are you making it emotional? How are you making it real art? You know, that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. The DAW is... it's all the same. They're all the same. They all do the same thing. All right. So once again, shouts out to each and every one of you. Lots of love. It's been a blast. I've never done this much teaching this fast, but Andy, there's a good suggestion. He's a good egg, that Andy. He's a good egg. All right. Lots of love. I'll see you in the producer's path. Peace. Did you know that you could be proud of the music you're making 90 days from now, even if you've never made music before? All it takes is a commitment to 5 minutes a day. Yep, just 5 minutes, and you'll embark on a transformative journey into music production and self-discovery. Can you spare that? I'm Bill Gates, and I've spent 20 years distilling my experiences with Grammy-winning artists, making tracks played over 65 million times into something epic for you. The Producer's Path. This isn't just a course, it's a gateway to mastering music production without needing expensive gear or prior experience. You don't need to be born rich, you don't need to be born gifted. All you need is a commitment to spending 5 minutes a day on music. The Producer's Path is a proven system that has supported top artists throughout the industry. And now it's your turn to access these secrets and forge your own unique sound. As you journey through the 12 levels of the Producer's Path, each step designed to build your skills and confidence, you'll not only learn music production, production, but also discover how to express your individual style, breaking the rules like a true artist. Join our vibrant Producer Dojo community, get feedback on your tracks, and maybe even feature on a Dojo mixtape. With no subscriptions and free updates for life, your path to music mastery is evergreen, and you can come back again and again and again, getting more out of it each time. So what's it going to be? Continue as is, or spend the next 90 days at the dojo transforming into the music producer you've always wanted to be? Listen to what your fellow dojo members have achieved with the producer's path. Their success stories could be yours.
I started from zero.
Dude, the way you laid it out,
Here's what you do first.
It's amazing.
The habit tracking changed my whole mindset.
honestly,
Huge breakthrough.
Huge difference.
comprehensive.
Game changers.
It gives me goosebumps.
Just blows my mind.
That's when I was like, okay, I can make music.
I'm actually doing some art.
Making music felt more real at that point.
To understand, hey, I'm doing this shit right.
I can show my children's children who I was.
Other people have been saying it sounds good.
Everybody's like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting.
Never found the answer until I went to the producer's path.